Hello. Now, I urge you all to have a look at a column by Hugo Rifkind. And he is the son of Malcolm, who was a senior Conservative politician, a minister in the Thatcher government, and Major, I believe. And, you know, this person has been brought up with politics. And he's talking about, he's written a column today, and he's talking about Zahawi's carelessness. And he says that, politicians sometimes give themselves a catchphrase, and he talks about Gavin Williamson telling Russia to go away and shut up, Dominic Raab being surprised that imports had to cross the channel, cleverly doing some shopping, and Zahawi for being, quote, careless and not deliberate. Yet, while the former, that's cleverly, is just your basic desperate politician nonsense, the latter is something more. Zahawi clearly thinks it makes him sound better, and I really think that it doesn't. There were careless people, he goes on, and this is the really interesting and decisive paragraph. There were, and I'm going to quote as much of it as I can. There were careless people, Liz and Kwasi. You see what I mean? Not because they made mistakes, because the risk of making their particular mistakes, the ones that cost the country billions and had mortgage holders waking to 3 a.m. cold sweats, had not given them pause. They were careless. They didn't care. Literally, they were careless. And in recent decades, I would say that their sort of carelessness was something we have led up to. We have had careless wars and careless referendums. Careless reforms to the NHS, careless laws, careless budgets, careless demonization of minority groups. I could go on, but you get the idea. It's tunnel vision. You have a project, but could bad things happen too? Hey, who cares? And that is the, I think, the tone with which we need to look at Nadhim Zahawi's carelessness. Because actually, his carelessness has cost us dearly. His carelessness is almost certainly going to be judged by historians as the end of the Conservative government and a serious rupture in our standing in the world, a serious rupture in the propriety of British government. I think it's this point, rather than Boris Johnson, which is the decisive point. Boris Johnson, we knew what he was when he came into politics. We knew exactly what he was, because he had form. But Nadhim Zahawi is just one of the troops, one of the many. And the problem with the Nadhim Zahawi affair, with this scandal, is that you don't know where else it's going on. Zahawi and the cronies who are supporting him and effectively conspiring with him to cover up his indiscretion, they're all in it up to their necks. That's the impression that is being given as this drags on day after day. They're all in it up to their necks. This is corruption like we have not seen in British politics, I think, in my lifetime. Even the sleaze, quote, from the Major government was nothing like this. Nothing like this. This is another level of corruption entirely. This is the level of corruption that I would expect expect actually not even to be tolerated in the southern Mediterranean. This is a corruption on a different scale. And at the same time, Mr. Zelensky in Ukraine is rooting out even those who have the slightest hint of corruption. I find it extraordinary, and other stories are poised to break even as I talk about this. There are worse stories to come, believe me. And those stories will get closer and closer to the seat of power. Those stories will get closer and closer to Rishi Sunak, because Rishi Sunak has surrounded himself, like Boris, like Liz Truss, like Mrs. May, I'm afraid, by people who are careless. People who have got too comfortable under the table with their feet. People who do not care, people who feel privileged. And this, I'm afraid, is not peculiar to just the Conservative Party, just the party in power. This is peculiar to the political class that we have bred at the moment, which has no experience of real life. We need to change the dynamic, we need to change the terms, and we need to become a healthier democracy if we are to advance at all.